Welcome back for another book review. Today we are talking about this one. So this is Llewellyn's 2023 Magical Almanac, Practical Magic for Everyday Living. This is one that comes out every year, obviously, and this is one that I had considered getting, but I wasn't sure exactly what was going to be in here, so I was waiting. And since finding out the library through very specific searches does actually contain a lot of witchy books, I was happy to see that they have this along with a few of the previous years. And so this is one, much like the other like yearly books that they do, that I am planning to read through and see like, is it worth buying? And this definitely is one very similar to The Witch's Companion, where it's a bunch of articles that are just put in here. They cover a variety of topics. It's not really specific to any one thing, whereas some of them, like the Sabbath Almanac, obviously revolves around the Wheel of the Year. And this is definitely more of just like random articles on different things in magic. So I don't know if they do this every year or if it was just this year or what, but they've got it sectioned off into earth magic, air magic, and then it has the almanac section where it has like the moon phases and times and stuff. And then fire magic, water magic, and color magic. I don't know if they change that year to year. I do plan to get previous years and of course future ones to see, but that's how they set up at least this one. So for the most part, these were interesting. There's a few that really stood out to me that I really loved. For example, there was one pretty early on that was talking about like naming your house and using like the, I think it's pronounced like anism, where objects have spirits, like not just like trees and stuff, but like your house, your car, whatever. Like inanimate objects still have a spirit. And in that article, the author talked about how there's like a specific thing about like naming your home and like naming your space. And it was something that I had never really considered. And yet when you think about it, people will name like certain places. Like there are so many like rich people that like their mansions have names, and you know, like ranches typically have names, like Elk Ridge Ranch and like Ravenwood Manor. Like there's different things, and like the different labels associated obviously mean different things. Manor, typically you're gonna think of a fancy rich person's house. A ranch, you're gonna think of like maybe a nice house, maybe it's a tiny little thing, but a lot of land, whether it's cattle or goats or it's fields that are, you know, like corn and alfalfa and whatever, or a mix of both, like whatever, you're gonna think that more than like a nice rich person's house, you know? So like thinking of the names and like if you call it like a cottage, and then also the words associated with it. Some places do have names already established, but most don't. And this doesn't have to be connected to your street name. Street names are sometimes picked at random, and sometimes they have meanings behind it. The town I grew up in, a lot of the streets were named after kind of the land it was built on. The people who had sold off the land, they had a bunch of horses at one point, and a lot of the streets, at least the initial streets, were named after each of their horses that they had. So like the people starting to move in there might not know that because it's like been years, but like I know that. But like for my street, it doesn't have like a really special name to it. It's a really generic name. And most of them in town are pretty generic too. And so like sometimes street names are really fun. And like I think I heard somewhere they're starting to have like street names named after Pokemon. So like that would be cool, but also like you don't have to name your house specifically after that for like a magical purpose. Like, so stuff like that. Like I thought that was cool. You could also go into like the numerology of your house, but that's not something you can choose. Choosing a name for your house where like you could put like a little banner if you felt so inclined, or like have the family home have a name. Like that kind of stuff you could totally do. And the whole article talked about it. I think there was even a ritual to do with it because obviously like it's a magical book, so like it's gonna have stuff. But that was one that stood out a lot. Of course, there was another one in there for how to deal with nightmares. And again, like I have a lot of things in place that help with that. But it's one of those that like when you get plagued with nightmares, as like people who deal with anxiety and depression, and like my husband who's got ADHD, like there's times when nightmares become really prevalent that it's like, as many tools in the toolbox as possible, thank you. And then of course there was other articles in here that were like hit or miss. Like there was some interesting ones. Like there was one on coins, but it was specific years of coins that was like not easy accessible. Like it was like coins minted in like 1914 to 1926 or something, and you're like, do you know how not easy that is to come across? Really? Because like I can guarantee you I probably have none of that. I probably have coins from like maybe 2008. Maybe. Like, I'm not gonna find really old coins to use in my magic. And like to try and find those is not going to be an easy task. So like for me it was like, it's interesting, but it's not practical. I like spells that are really more accessible to the majority of people, not just people who have access to things like ancient money. Because like if you try and find that, it's usually expensive because it's like an antique and like it's not in circulation really anymore. So, you know, because like they've changed how they make our coins here. And I don't know, it was just kind of like, why are we not talking about like current currency? That seemed weird. Because like, why not tell me how to use pennies now? And nickels and dimes and quarters and whatever. Like, I don't know, like stuff like that, like it's interesting, but not really applicable. And then there was some that was just straight up like, absolutely not. Like there was one article that's Welsh snakeskin powder. Absolutely not, no. I don't do anything with snakes. They're gross. I hate them. I know they're important. Where I live, we have the venomous kind. I don't like them. They all need to die. I don't care if it's a gardener snake or a rattlesnake. I don't care. They need to not be around me. There are mountains for them to live, not my yard. No, I don't like them. And so, like, that article was rough to get through because the whole time I'm like, nope, nope, ick, absolutely ick, no. Like, it would be the same as, like, a spider article. And honestly, I think I could almost handle spiders more than snakes. It depends on the day though, because truly sometimes they're the worst. Not related to this book review in the slightest. I didn't turn that on and it hasn't been on. That's fun. I don't know what that's about. Because I didn't turn it on for my video, because if you'll notice, none of the other, well actually you can only see two, but these aren't on. My room's dark at night, so that's fun. Maybe the house truly does want to be named or something. I don't know, that's weird. Cause like, I would notice if it was lit because I have to pee all night and I use my phone flashlight. Anyways, that's weird. There's also some of the articles in here that again, it depends on where you live and what you're interested in. For example, there's the whole thing on palm tree magic. They don't exist here at all, not even in the slightest. I don't think we have any, except maybe in like random yards of people, but for the most part no. Like that's not the trees that are transplanted here. Like that's just not a thing in Utah. Again, I can think of like one house in like a random subdivision that has it, and they're definitely transplanted, and I truly don't know how they survive the winters because like it gets cold here. Like, I don't know if they have like heaters wrapped around it or something. I don't know, because it gets cold and a lot of snow. But like, yeah, there's just random stuff on here. Like there was an article on like going through menopause, and it's like, while that one was interesting, it was also like, little mini violin. Because like, it's just one of those things. Like some of those topics, like for me, I'm just like, oh no. That sucks, I guess, because, like, I don't have a normal cycle, so, like, for me, that's just not a community I'm ever gonna be, like, any sort of way feeling connected to, because it's like, well, when your period starts to get off, and you don't have it for months or even a year, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I aim for, actually, is to just never have it, because if I do, it tries to kill me, so, like, yeah, that's gonna be a fun time. That's gonna be more stress than anything, to find out when. If you don't have like, I don't know what's gonna happen. The doctors have no idea either, because it's a very specific kind of problem. So like, it's just, again, it's reading through it, and it's like this loss of identity, and you're like, cool, I went through that at like, before I had my period. Because I didn't know if I was going to have like a hysterectomy at like 10 years old. So I've already processed those feels already. Cool. Like, it's just little things like that where you're like, this is not for me, but it could be for somebody else. So anyways, I think this book might be worth getting every year. Again, some of the topics that are covered in these books, not always my thing, but like sometimes they do have important stuff that I do like. So it just kind of depends year to year on what they're going to include. Some authors you're gonna like more than others, but there's a nice variety in here, which is nice. So anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts on these. Have you gotten them in the previous years? Did you like them? Did you not? Why? Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen if you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content. It is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.